Hello and welcome. It is time to let the day dissolve, to release the thoughts and worries that cling to the waking mind, and to allow yourself to drift into stillness. There is nothing for you to do now, nothing to solve, nowhere else you need to be. You are here, in this quiet space, ready for rest. Find the most comfortable position for yourself, perhaps pulling a blanket a little closer, feeling its gentle weight as a quiet reassurance. Allow your eyes to close, or to soften their focus on a point in the dim light of your room. Take a slow, deep breath, and as you exhale, imagine the tension in your shoulders and your neck simply melting away, a quiet release. And another breath, feeling your body grow heavier, more settled, more at peace. Tonight, we are not going to concern ourselves with the noise and the hurry of the modern world. Instead, we are going to travel back in time, not to a world of grand battles or thrilling adventures, but to the quiet, often overlooked corners of history. We will become gentle observers, watching the steady, rhythmic pulse of life in a time long past. We will explore the world of medieval Europe, a world lit by candle and firelight, a world governed by faith and fear, and a profound connection to the cycles of the earth. Our journey tonight will be one of quiet immersion, a deep and detailed exploration of what it was truly like to live, and to fear, and to hope in this distant age. There is no need to follow every word. Allow my voice to be a steady, gentle guide, a quiet murmur in the background as your mind begins to wander, to drift, and to dream. Let the details of the past become a soft lullaby, carrying you softly towards sleep. Our journey begins now, in a place of deep shadow and profound courage, the place where medicine and mortality were intertwined in a desperate, daily dance. Let us begin. Imagine yourself standing in a small, sparsely furnished room. The only light comes from a single tallow candle, its flame sputtering and dancing, casting on wavering shadows across the stone walls. The air is cool and damp, thick with the scent of dried herbs, of lavender, mint, and something sharper, the acidic tang of vinegar. This is your world, your sanctuary before you step out into the world outside. For you are a plague doctor. The year is 1348. The great pestilence, the Black Death, has come to your city. It crept in silently at first, a rumor from a distant port, a whispered fear. Now, it is a suffocating reality, the normal sounds of the city, the boisterous calls of merchants, the laughter of children, the clang of the blacksmith's hammer, have all been replaced by a new soundscape, an eerie quiet, punctuated by the distant, mournful tolling of a church bell, a sound that has become almost constant, and the low rumble of the death cart making its slow, grim rounds. It is time to prepare. You do not rush. Every step of this process is a ritual, a warding against the invisible poison that hangs in the very air. First, you pull on your boots, made of thick Moroccan leather, reaching high up your calves. They are well oiled, creating a seal against the filth of the streets. You tuck your trousers into them, ensuring no skin is exposed. Next comes the coat. It is your armor, a long garment of heavy, waxed leather. It stretches from your neck all the way to your ankles. It feels weighty on your shoulders, a constant, heavy presence. The wax coating is meant to be a barrier to prevent the bad air, the miasma, from clinging to the fabric. The entire garment has been soaked in vinegar and allowed to dry, and its sharp scent is a constant companion, a familiar smell that you have come to associate with your own survival. Over your hands, you pull on thick leather gloves, also waxed. You feel sealed in, protected, yet utterly isolated from the world of touch. And now, for the final, Most important piece, the mask. You pick it up from the small wooden table. It is not merely a covering, but a strange and imposing construct, fashioned from dark leather. It covers your entire head. The eye holes are fitted with round pieces of glass, like spectacles built into the mask itself, looking through them. Your vision is immediately constrained, slightly distorted at the edges, as if you are peering at the world through two small, murky windows. It distances you, makes everything seem slightly unreal. And then there is the beak, the most iconic feature of your attire, a long, bird-like beak, perhaps half a foot in length, protrudes from the front of the mask. This beak is not for show. It is the heart of your defense. You carefully stuff its hollow interior with a potent, aromatic mixture known as theriac. It is a complex, almost mystical concoction, a recipe that can contain over 50 ingredients. You can smell the sharp, sweet perfume of ambergris, the cool scent of mint and camphor, the spicy notes of clove and myrrh, and the earthy aroma of juniper. This pungent bouquet is all you will breathe for the next several hours. Its purpose is to filter the pestilential air, to overpower the miasma with its own protective fragrance. You secure the mask, tying the leather straps at the back of your head. The world becomes muffled. The scent of the herbs is almost overpowering at first, a thick, cloying perfume filling your senses. The only sound is the echo of your own breathing, a slow, rhythmic hiss and sigh, amplified by the confines of the leather. In and out. The sound is a constant reminder of your own fragile life, trapped inside this strange, protective shell. Your final piece of equipment is the cane, a long, simple wooden staff. You grasp it in your gloved hand. It is an extension of yourself, a tool that allows you to interact with the world without making direct contact. You will use it to point, to direct family members, to lift bedsheets, and to examine the afflicted from a safe distance. It is a tool of detachment. Fully attired, you are no longer a simple man. You have become a symbol dot and omen. To see you walking down the street is to know that death is near. You take one last look round your quiet room, at the flickering candle, before pulling the heavy wooden door open and stepping out into the twilight. The street is narrow, the upper floors of the timber-framed houses nearly touching overhead, blotting out much of the sky. The air is thick and heavy, despite the herbs in your beak. The stench of the city finds its way through, the smell of human waste, of rot, of a deep, pervasive sickness that seems to have settled into the very stones and timbers of the town. You walk slowly, your heavy coat rustling with each deliberate step. The sound of your cane tapping on the cobblestones is unnaturally loud in the silence. People see you. A woman carrying a bucket of water freezes, her eyes wide with fear, before scurrying into a doorway, making the sign of the cross. A group of men huddled on a corner fall silent, their gazes following you until you pass. No one approaches you. No one speaks to you. You are untouchable, a necessary prior. This isolation is a heavy cloak, almost as real as the leather one you wear. Your destination is a house marked with a crude red cross. It is a sign of quarantine, a warning that the plague resides within. You pause at the door, the sound of your own breathing loud in your ears. You do not knock. You simply lift the latch and push the door open. The inside of the house is dark and stiflingly hot. A fire smolders in the hearth, not for warmth, but because it is believed that smoke and heat can help drive out the bad air. The room is filled with the smell of unwashed bodies, of fever, and of a cloying sweetness that is the unique scent of decay. A woman, her face a mask of exhaustion and despair, greets you with a silent, pleading look. You know this look well. It is a mixture of terror and a desperate, fading hope. With your cane, you gesture towards a low cot in the corner of the room. A young man, barely more than a boy, lies there, covered by a thin, sweat-soaked blanket. His breathing is shallow and rapid. You approach, keeping your distance, the tap of your cane on the wooden floorboards announcing your presence. You use the tip of the cane to gently push back the blanket from his neck and shoulder. And there it is, the bubo. A grotesque swelling, dark and purplish, the size of a small apple, has erupted in his armpit. It is taut and shiny, the skin stretched to its limit. This is the telltale sign, the token of the pestilence. Now, you must perform your duties. Your understanding of this illness is based on the theory of humors, the belief that the body is governed by four essential fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Sickness, you believe, is an imbalance of these humors. The plague, therefore, must be an excess of one, a corruption that must be drawn out. Your methods are born from this belief. You might decide to lance the bubo. From a small leather satchel, you produce a lancet. You would heat the blade in the embers of the fire, not out of an understanding of sanitation, but as a ritual of purification. Then, with the family members holding the patient down, you would make a quick, decisive cut. The goal is to release the corrupted matter, the putrid humor, from the body. You would then apply a poultice, perhaps a mixture of figs and cooked onions, or something more esoteric, like a paste made from lily root and dried human excrement. You do not do this with malice, but with a sense of methodical purpose, following the teachings of Galen and the masters of old. Or perhaps you would opt for phlebotomy. Bloodletting. The patient's fever is a sign of too much hot, corrupted blood. You would produce another lancet, or perhaps a phlegm, and open a vein in the arm, letting the blood flow into a small bowl. You would watch the color of the blood intently, dark and thick, a sign of the body's imbalance. You would let it flow until the patient grows faint, believing you are removing the poison from their system. You perform these actions with a detached calm. Your mask, your gloves, your entire costume creates a barrier not just against the disease, but an emotional one as well. You cannot afford to feel the terror of the family, or the pain of the young man on the cot. You are a technician performing a grim, and likely futile task, because deep down, beneath the layers of theory and tradition, you know the truth. You have seen this hundreds of times. You have lanced the buboes. You have let the blood. You have applied the poultices of clay and herbs, and you have seen nearly everyone die. The treatments are rituals of comfort more than acts of healing. They give the desperate families a sense that something is being done, that God and medicine have not entirely abandoned them. They give you a purpose, a reason to don the mask and walk the terrifying streets each day. When you are done, you offer the family a small pouch of dried herbs to burn in the room. You might prescribe a potion of vinegar and crushed pearls, or a broth made with expensive spices, if they can afford it. These are gestures of a physician. But you know they hold no real power against this tide of death. As you turn to leave, the mother presses a few small coins into your gloved hand, your fee. Your services are not cheap, and many plague doctors were criticized for profiting from suffering. But you have to live, and your work carries a risk so profound that few others would dare to undertake it. You step back out into the street. The sun has set now, and the darkness is thick and heavy. A torch flickers at the end of the lane, casting dancing shadows. The air feels no cleaner. You begin the slow walk back to your small, solitary room. The weight of your coat feels heavier now. The scent of the herbs in your beak seems to have soured. You think of the young man on the cot. You have done what you could, what your training and your philosophy dictated. But you have no illusions. You have seen the way the fever progresses, the way the body weakens, the way the mind begins to wander before the end comes. You are a witness to the end of the world, one patient at a time. Back in your room, the ritual of removal begins. It is as slow and deliberate as the dressing. The coat is removed and hung in a specific spot to be aired and re-waxed. The gloves, the boots, all carefully taken off. Finally, the mask. As you untie the straps, the cool, damp air of the room feels fresh on your skin, even with its lingering scent of vinegar. The sudden absence of the overpowering herbs in the beak leaves your head feeling strangely clear. The sound of your own breathing is no longer a muffled echo, but a quiet, lonely sound in the stillness of the room. You sit on the edge of your bed, the flickering candlelight painting your face in shades of orange and black. You are no longer the imposing symbol of death. You are just a man who has spent his day walking through the valley of the shadow of death, armed with nothing but a leather coat, a wooden cane, and a set of theories that crumble in the face of reality. The rhythm of your life is a constant struggle, a metronome marking the time between one dying patient and the next. You eat alone. You sleep alone. You are trapped in a world of sickness, held apart from the healthy by fear, and bound to the dying by a grim and solemn duty. And as you lie down to rest, the tolling of the distant church bell is the last sound you hear, a lullaby for a city in the grip of the plague. And you know, with a heavy certainty, that tomorrow you will rise, and you will do it all over again. Let us allow the image of the lonely plague doctor, with his beaked mask and the scent of vinegar, to slowly fade from our minds. We leave the suffocating fear of the 14th century and travel forward, merely a century later, to a different kind of struggle. The air is no longer thick with the miasma of disease, but with the smoke of battle, the weary weight of a kingdom in peril. We find ourselves in France, in the year 1429. The land is fractured, exhausted by the long, grinding conflict that would later be known as the 100 Years' War. The English and their Burgundian allies hold the north, including Paris itself. The rightful French king, the Dauphin Charles, holds a court in exile, a ruler in name but not in power, his spirit seemingly broken. The people are tired. The nobility is divided. There is a sense of hopelessness, a feeling that France itself is slowly being erased. But into this gloom, a new light appears. Not a king or a great general, but a teenage peasant girl from a small, insignificant village. Her name is Joan. She claims to hear the voices of saints, to carry a divine mission from God, to drive out the English, and see the Dauphin crowned king in the sacred city of Reims. We will not focus on Joan herself tonight. Her story, a brilliant, meteoric flame, is well known instead. We turn our attention to the figures who were drawn into her orbit, like moths to that sudden, inexplicable light. We will explore the lives of those who stood beside her, who fought with her, and whose own destinies were forever altered by their brief time in her presence. Their stories are not of sainthood, but of a more human struggle, of loyalty, conflict, and the profound, often tragic, consequences of witnessing a miracle. Our first quiet observation is of a man named Jean d'Aulon. He was not a great lord or a fiery warrior. He was a man of quiet competence, a gentleman of a certain age, known for his reliability and his steady character. It was for these reasons that he was appointed to the most intimate of positions, Joan as steward, Her Majesty Hotel. He became her constant companion, the practical shadow to her divine light. Imagine yourself as Jean d'Aulon, waking before dawn in a military encampment. The air is cold and damp, smelling of wet wool, horses, and the wood smoke of 1,000 campfires. Your first duty is to see to the maid. You insure her. Horse is groomed and ready, its tack polished and strong. You manage the small household that travels with her, the pages, the priests, the guards. You are the one who worries about logistics. Are there enough provisions for the week? Are the soldiers' wages paid? Is the armor she insists on wearing properly maintained? While others see a holy messenger, you see that and something more. You see a young woman who eats little, who spends long hours in prayer, and who weeps for the enemy dead on the battlefield. You stand guard outside her tent at night, a silent protector. You sit in on the tense councils of war, watching as hardened, cynical captains and arrogant nobles listen, first with disbelief and then with awe, as this uneducated girl outlines strategies with a clarity that seems impossible. You are with her during the Great Lawyer campaign. You feel the grit of the road, the nervous energy before the assault on Orleans, the surge of unbelievable victory. You see the way the common soldiers look at her, their faces filled with a reverence that borders on worship. They would follow her anywhere, and because you are by her side, you are swept along in this tide of renewed faith. Your relationship is one of quiet, respectful duty. She calls you both sire, or fair sire, and trusts your judgment in all practical matters. You, in turn, are fiercely protective. You see the political maneuvering round her, the jealousy of some commanders, the Dauphin's own weak-willed hesitation. You are the steadfast, earthy anchor in the whirlwind of her divine mission. This loyalty defines the rest of your life. You are captured alongside her at Compiègne, sharing in her defeat as you had shared in her victories. And years later, long after she is gone, you are called to testify at a rehabilitation trial. Your words, recorded for history, are not grand or poetic. They are the simple, honest observations of a man who was there. You speak of her piety, of her kindness, of her courage. You remember the small details that no one else would. You tell them how she always ensured her household confessed and heard Mass. You describe her simple habits and her unwavering focus. Your life, in the end, becomes a testament to hers, a long, quiet service to her memory. Now, let us turn our gaze to another figure, a man of a very different station. Jean II, the Duke of Alençon, a prince of the royal blood, a cousin to the Dauphin himself. When he first meets Joan, he is a young man, but already a veteran of war, having been captured by the English at the Battle of Verneuil and held for a long, ruinous ransom. He is proud, chivalrous, and initially deeply skeptical of this peasant girl, but his skepticism melts away in her presence. He becomes perhaps her greatest and most devoted champion among the high nobility. He is captivated by her. Where Jean d'Aulon is a protective steward, Alençon is a devoted knight. A true believer, he affectionately calls her La Belle Pucelle, the beautiful maid, and treats her with a combination of chivalric reverence and familial warmth. Imagine yourself as a duke. You are a trained military commander, steeped in the traditions of aristocratic warfare, and yet you find yourself deferring to the strategic instincts of this girl. You ride beside her into battle. You see her courage under fire as she plants her banner on the edge of an enemy fortress, and you believe. Your support gives her legitimacy in the eyes of the other nobles. Together, you form a powerful partnership, achieving a series of stunning victories after the liberation of Orleans. Your time with Joan is the zenith of your life. It is a time of clear purpose, of divine certainty. You are fighting for God and for France, at the side of a living saint. You are there when she achieves her primary goal, the coronation of the Dauphin as King Charles VII in the cathedral at Reims. It is a moment of pure triumph, the culmination of an impossible dream. But after the coronation, the dream begins to fray. The king, now crowned, prefers negotiation and courtly intrigue to the battlefield. Joan's desire to press on, to take Paris, is thwarted. You share her frustration. You have seen what is possible when faith and action are combined. And you cannot understand the court's vacillation. Then comes the tragedy of her capture, her trial, and her execution. You are not there. The king holds you back. You are left in a world suddenly devoid of its miracle. And this is where the tragic turn in your own life begins. You are a man of action, a man fired by the holy zeal Joan inspired. But the war has become a slow, grinding affair of politics and sieges. You struggle. You pour your own fortune into the war effort, hoping to rekindle the flame of 1429. But you fall into debt. Your ambition, once a noble engine of war, becomes soured by frustration. You begin to feel that the king you helped crown has forgotten you. Years pass. The memory of Joan is a distant, painful one. You begin to make poor choices. You clash with the king's favorites. You engage in plots against the crown, a desperate attempt to regain your influence. Twice you are arrested and tried for treason. The hero who fought beside the Maid of Orleans is condemned as a traitor to the king she served. Your titles are stripped, your lands confiscated. You spend the last years of your life in prison, a forgotten relic of a more glorious, fervent time. Your life, which burns so brightly in her presence, becomes a long, slow, and bitter decline, a testament to the difficulty of living after the miracle has gone. Finally, we must turn to the darkest and most disturbing story of all, that of Gilles de Rais, as we approach the subject. Let us do so with the detached calm of a distant observer. The story is a grim one, and we will not dwell on its most horrific details, but rather on the shocking trajectory of a life, on the profound and terrifying fall from grace. In 1429, Gilles de Rais was everything a medieval nobleman was supposed to be. He was fantastically wealthy, from one of the most powerful families in Brittany. He was handsome, intelligent, brave, and deeply pious. He was a distinguished commander who rushed to Joan's side, spending a fortune of his own money to equip soldiers for her army. He fought with her at Orleans. He was with her at Rheims, where he was honored for his valor and made a Marshal of France. He stood near her during the coronation, a shining example of chivalric perfection. He was a hero, a companion in arms to a saint. He shared in her divine purpose, his life seemingly one of piety and martial glory. But after Joan's capture and death, something within Gilles de Rais broke. A profound darkness began to seep into his soul. He retreated from the royal court to his vast, isolated estates, most notably his fortress at Tiforges. And here, his story diverges from one of heroism into one of utter infamy. His immense wealth began to drain away. He spent lavishly on theatrical productions, on a massive ecclesiastical court, and on the pursuit of alchemy, hoping to find the philosopher's stone to turn lead into gold. His search for forbidden knowledge led him down a much darker path. He began to associate with sorcerers and dabblers in the occult, seeking to summon demons to grant his desires. And then, the rumors began. Quiet whispers among the peasantry at first. Children were disappearing from the villages and lands surrounding his castles. For years, the disappearances continued. A cloud of unspoken terror gathering over the countryside. His reputation as a war hero shielded him for a time. No one could believe that the man who fought beside the Maid of Orleans could be capable of such things. We will not linger on the specifics of his crimes. It is enough to know that they were of the most terrible nature, a litany of horrors that almost defies comprehension. The hero had become a monster, his piety twisting into a grotesque parody of demonic worship. The fortress of T-Forges, once a symbol of noble power, became a place of dread, eventually. A dispute with a clergyman brought his actions to the attention of both civil and ecclesiastical authority. Yes, he was arrested, and a trial was held as witness after witness came forward. And as his own accomplices confessed, the full, shocking truth was revealed. The evidence was overwhelming. Gilles de Rais, the hero of France, confessed to acts so monstrous that they shook the foundations of the medieval world, his life, which had run parallel to Joan's in their shared rise to glory, ended in the most horrific contrast. While she was burned as a heretic only to be revered as a saint, he was executed as a serial murderer and a Satanist, his name becoming a byword for evil. His story serves as a terrifying cautionary tale, a glimpse into the abyss that can open up when faith is lost and replaced by a desperate, nihilistic pursuit of power and forbidden experience. And so, we see the echoes left by that single, brilliant flame, the loyal stood, Jean Dorlon, who dedicated his long life to preserving her memory, the conflicted Duke, Jean de Lincoln, who soared in her light and then fell in the long twilight that followed and the fallen night. Gilles de Rais, whose inner darkness consumed him when her light was extinguished. 3 men, 3 destinies, all irrevocably bound to the shepherd girl from Lorraine who showed them a glimpse of the divine, and then left them to find their own way in a world that no longer seemed so simple. We have seen how the spirit of a single individual, Joan of Arc, could ignite the soul of a nation, shaping the lives of those round her through faith and force of will. We now let that world of chivalry and war recede and travel to a different time and place. We are moving forward into the early 16th century, to the imperial free city of Strasbourg. Here, we will witness a phenomenon not of individual will, but of its terrifying absence, a time when a strange, inexplicable energy seized not just one person, but an entire community, compelling them into a dance from which there was no escape. The year is 1518. Strasbourg is a bustling hub of commerce and culture, nestled in the Alsace region of the Holy Roman Empire. But beneath the surface of daily life, there is a deep and pervasive anxiety. The preceding years have been hard. A series of bitter winters and wet springs have led to poor harvests and famine. The price of grain, the very bread of life, has soared. Disease is a constant, unwelcome neighbor. Leprosy and the newly arrived scourge of syphilis haunt the city's margins. The spiritual world is in turmoil as well. The foundations of the Catholic Church are cracking, and the revolutionary ideas of a German monk named Martin Luther are beginning to spread. Creating a current of religious tension and uncertainty, the people of Strasbourg are living in a state of chronic stress. They are malnourished, fearful of damnation, and feel powerless against the forces of nature and God. Their minds are fertile ground for something strange to take root. And in the oppressive heat of July, it does. It begins with a single person, a woman named Frau Trophia. We do not know much about her, only what she did. One day, she walked out of her small, timber-framed house and onto the cobblestone street. And for no apparent reason, she began to dance. Let us pause to imagine this moment. There is no music, no festival, no joyous occasion. Her husband watches from the doorway, first in confusion, then in alarm. Her movements are not graceful or celebratory. They are jerky, compulsive, a silent, relentless stomping and twirling under the hot summer sun. He pleads with her to stop, but she seems not to hear him. Her face is a mask of distress, her body a prisoner to this strange impulse. She dances for hours until she collapses from sheer exhaustion. But after a few hours of fitful, troubled sleep, she rises and begins to dance again. This continues for days. She is a spectacle, a source of pity and fear for her neighbors. She cannot stop. Within a week, something even more bizarre happens. She is no longer dancing alone. A handful of other people have begun to join her, their bodies seemingly seized by the same irresistible urge. Then dozens. The phenomenon is spreading like a contagion. It is as if the sight of the dancing itself is the catalyst. People would stop to watch and find their own feet beginning to move, their own bodies betraying them, pulling them into the growing, writhing crowd. The city's authorities are forced to intervene. The city council and the powerful guilds consult with local physicians, peering through the lens of their time. They do not see a mental affliction. They diagnose it according to the ancient theory of the humors, the dancers. They conclude, are suffering from hot blood. Their minds are overheated. And this has caused their erratic behavior. And their prescribed cure is one of the strangest in the annals of medicine. They decide that the afflicted must not be restrained. They must be encouraged to dance. The thinking is that they will. Quite literally, dance the fever out of their systems. They must continue their frantic movements until the hot blood has cooled and their humoral balance is restored. And so the city of Strasbourg, in an act of well-intentioned but catastrophic civic planning, facilitates the plague. They clear out large indoor spaces, like the guild halls. To give the dancers more room, they designate the open-air horse market as an official dancing stage. To make the cure more effective, they even hire professional musicians to play pipes, drums and horns. They bring in healthy dancers to dance alongside the afflicted, hoping to guide their chaotic movements and keep their spirits up. Imagine the scene. Hundreds of people, men and women, young and old, packed together in the city square. Their movements are frantic, uncoordinated. Their faces are slick with sweat, their expressions vacant or agonized. They dance on and on, hour after hour, day after day. The sound is a cacophony, the relentless, thumping rhythm of the hired musicians, the shuffling and stamping of hundreds of feet, and the pained groans of the dancers themselves. This is not a party. It is a tableau of human suffering. As the days turn into weeks, the physical toll becomes horrific. The constant, repetitive motion wears their bodies down. They dance through exhaustion, through pain. Their shoes are worn to shreds, and their feet become raw and bloodied. Dehydration and starvation set in. The weakest among them begin to falter. They suffer from heart attacks, from strokes, from simple, complete exhaustion. Their bodies just give out. At the peak of the plague, it is said that as many as 15 people per day danced themselves to death in the streets of Strasbourg. The authorities finally realize their cure is only making things worse. They abandon the hot blood theory and turn to a supernatural explanation. This must be a curse, specifically the curse of Saint Vitus, a saint who was known to punish sinners by inflicting upon them a compulsive, plague-like dance. The city's policy shifts dramatically. The music is banned. The stages are dismantled. The dancers, or those who can still be moved, are rounded up. They are put into wagons and taken on a forced pilgrimage to a mountain-top shrine dedicated to Saint Vitus. There, they are led round a wooden altar and made to pray for forgiveness. They are given small crosses and red shoes that have been blessed by priests. And slowly, over the course of several weeks, the dancing mania begins to subside. The plague burns itself out. But the question remains, even 500 years later, what truly happened in Strasbourg? Was it really the wrath of a vengeful saint? Modern science has offered several theories. One of the most prominent is ergot poisoning. Ergot is a mold that grows on rye, a staple grain in the 16th century, particularly during damp weather like the kind that preceded the famine. This fungus contains a chemical, ergotamine, which is a powerful psychoactive substance. It is, in fact, the chemical from which LSD was first synthesized. It can cause violent muscle spasms, convulsions, and vivid hallucinations. This theory seems plausible at first, a community eating contaminated bread could explain a mass outbreak of strange physical symptoms. However, scholars have pointed out problems with this theory. Ergot poisoning, or St. Anthony's fire as it was known, also typically causes gangrene, cutting off blood flow to the extremities, and severe digestive distress. These symptoms are conspicuously absent from the detailed contemporary accounts of the dancing plague. Furthermore, it seems unlikely that hundreds of people, all poisoned by the same fungus, would have the exact same coordinated hallucination and physical response to dance, often for weeks on end. This leads us to a second, more widely accepted theory: mass psychogenic illness, or what was once called mass hysteria. This is, in essence, is sickness of the mind that becomes a sickness of the body, spread not by a germ, but by sight and suggestion within a community under immense psychological pressure. Let us recall the conditions in Strasbourg. The people were starving, sick, and terrified of eternal damnation. Their world was an anxious and superstitious one. In this environment, the sight of Frau Trofia's inexplicable dancing could act as a trigger for some, whose minds were already strained to the breaking point. The belief that they could become afflicted was enough to make it happen. They fell into a trance-like state, their bodies acting out a deeply rooted cultural fear. The curse of Saint Vitus was not just a story to them. It was a real and terrifying possibility. When the authorities stepped in and affirmed that this was a medical condition that must be danced out, they unintentionally validated and legitimized the hysteria. They created a stage, both literally and psychologically, for the affliction to flourish. The mass hysteria became a socially sanctioned performance of suffering. It was only when they changed their approach, framing it as a spiritual problem needing a spiritual cure, that the collective trance was finally broken. So what was it that seized the people of Strasbourg? In 1518, a poison in their bread, or a deeper contagion of fear in their collective soul? Was it a chemical reaction, or a desperate, physical manifestation of unbearable stress? The records are too sparse to say for certain. The dancing plague remains a haunting mystery, a quiet testament to the strange and powerful connection between the mind and the body, and a reminder of how a community of shared anxieties can sometimes bubble to the surface in the most inexplicable ways. The streets eventually fell silent. The dancing stopped. But the memory of that summer of madness lingers on. Let the frantic, chaotic energy of the dancing plague dissolve into silence. We leave the frenzied public square and the desperate prayers at the mountain shrine. Our journey tonight now takes us to a place that is the very opposite of that madness. We seek refuge behind high stone walls, in a world built on order, contemplation, and a quiet and yielding purpose. We are entering a medieval monastery. Imagine a large, self-contained world, built of cold, enduring stone. The first thing you notice is the quality of the sound. The clamor of the outside world is gone, replaced by a profound quiet. Here, sounds do not jostle for attention. They have space to breathe. The scrape of a sandal on a stone floor, the distant cooing of a dove in the cloister garth, the soft rustle of a woolen robe. The air itself feels different. It is cool and still, carrying the faint, clean scents of beeswax, old parchment, and the damp earth of a well-tended garden. This is a community of monks. You see them moving through the arched walkways of the cloister, their forms nearly identical in their simple habits of coarse and dyed wool. They are men from all walks of life. A third son of a great noble, with no inheritance to expect, might walk beside a man who was once a simple farmer, seeking refuge from a harsh and unpredictable world. Some are here for pure piety, others for the security the monastery provides, and still others for the rare chance to lead a life of the mind. Whatever their reason for being here, their lives are now woven into a single, collective tapestry of routine and devotion. The life of a monk is governed by the horarium, a rigid schedule of work and prayer that gives shape and meaning to every waking and sleeping moment. The day is divided into 8 canonical hours, and it begins in the deepest part of the night. The bell tolls at 2 a.m. Imagine waking to that sound. Not a jarring alarm, but a deep, resonant tone that rolls through the cold air of the dormitory. There is no lingering, no hesitation. The monks rise from their simple straw pallets in silence, in the pitch black. They pull on their robes and file out of the long, open room. Their destination is the abbey church. The church is vast and unheated, a cavern of chilling stone and deep shadow. The only light comes from a few flickering candles on the high altar, their small flames doing little to pierce the immense darkness. The monks take their places in the choir stalls, their faces hidden in the gloom of their cowls, and then they begin to sing. This is the first service of the day. Matins, the night office. The sound that fills the space is Gregorian chant. It is not a performance. It is a prayer, a low, monophonic melody that rises and falls with a steady, hypnotic rhythm. The Latin verses echo against the stone pillars and vaulted ceilings, a sound that seems as ancient and enduring as the building itself. For an hour or more, they chant in the darkness, their voices united, a quiet offering in a sleeping world, as the first, faint, grey light of dawn begins to outline the high windows. They move into the next service, Lauds, the prayer of praise for the coming day. Afterwards, they gather for the daily chapter meeting. Here, the abbot assigns the day's work, and monks may be called upon to confess their faults before the community. A moment of pride, a harsh word, a lapse in focus. It is a moment of discipline and humility, reinforcing a communal bond. The day continues a steady rhythm of prayer and labor. Prime, in the early morning. Terce at mid-morning. Sext at noon. None, in the afternoon. Each service is a bell toll, a summons back to the church, a recentering of the mind on the divine purpose that underpins their entire existence. Between these calls to prayer is labor work. For many monks, this work takes place in the scriptorium. Imagine a quiet room with large windows to catch the day's light. Monks are hunched over slanted wooden desks. The only sound is the gentle, rhythmic scratching of a quill pen on prepared animal skin, on vellum or parchment. This is a sacred and painstaking task. A single, beautifully illustrated Bible could take a team of monks years to complete. Observe one such. Scribe. He carefully mixes his own ink from oak galls or soot. He sharpens his goose quill with a small, sharp knife. With unwavering focus, he copies the text from an older book, his hand steady, his letters precise. Another monk, an illuminator, works beside him, adding vibrant color and intricate designs to the margins. He grinds lapis lazuli to create a brilliant blue, or carefully applies a whisper-thin sheet of gold leaf, making the page glow with a divine light. In an age where books are fantastically rare and precious, these monks are the guardians of knowledge. They are preserving the scriptures, the writings of the church fathers, and even the classical texts of ancient Rome and Greece, quietly protecting centuries of human thought from being lost to time. But not all work is so intellectual. In the monastery gardens, you would find other monks tending to neat rows of herbs, their scents filling the air: lavender, rosemary. Lime all for use in the infirmary or the kitchen. Others work in the fields beyond the walls, tilling the soil, their lives still tied to the rhythm of the seasons. Others may be brewers, stonemasons, or beekeepers. Each contributes to the self-sufficiency of the community. Work is not a burden. It is another form of prayer, a service to God and to their brothers. Life within these walls is bound by 3 solemn vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience. Poverty means they own nothing. Their robe, their sandals, their pallet all belong to the community. Their food is simple, often without red meat, eaten in silence in a large refectory while one monk reads aloud from a sacred text. Chastity is a renunciation of worldly attachment, and obedience is absolute. The abbot is their spiritual father, but he is also an undisputed authority, a powerful feudal lord in his own right, managing the monastery's vast lands and resources. His word is final. These vows, which seem so restrictive, are intended as a liberation or release from the worldly anxieties of possession, ambition, and desire, freeing the mind for its single, focused purpose. As the afternoon sun grows long, the monks gather for vespers, the evening prayer, and finally, as darkness falls completely, they meet one last time for compline, the final prayer of the day. It is a short, quiet service. Afterwards, the great silence begins. From this moment until after the chapter meeting the next morning, no monk may speak. They file back to the cold dormitory, a line of silent, cowled figures, and return to their beds. The monastery settles into a deep and peaceful stillness, a quiet island in the vast, dark sea of the medieval night. The cycle is complete. The monks rest, their lives given over to a rhythm as steady and predictable as the turning of the earth, ready for the bell that will call them once more into the sacred darkness at 2 a.m. A long, final pause, allowing the image of the silent monastery to become fully formed. The sound of the crackling fire swells very slightly, then begins a slow, gentle fade. Our journey through the past is now at its end. Allow the image of the silent, sleeping monastery to gently dissolve. Tonight, we have walked in the heavy, waxed coat of a plague doctor, smelling the vinegar and herbs meant to ward off a death that was all but certain. We have felt the weight of his futility, a quiet contrast to the medical certainties we now know. We stood in the shadow of a saint and watched the lives of 3 men: a loyal stood, a conflicted duke, and a fallen knight, as their destinies were forged and then broken by the fire of her conviction. We felt the frantic, compulsive energy of the streets of Strasbourg, where an entire city was seized by a dancing madness, a strange testament to the power of communal fear and the deep anxieties of an age. And finally, we found refuge in the ordered silence of the monastery, a world where every moment was measured. Every action had a purpose, and life followed a sacred, unchanging rhythm. From the chaos of the plague to the rigid order of the cloister, we have seen the many ways our ancestors sought to find meaning and exert control in a world that often felt frightening and inexplicable. They fought disease with theories of humor, fought wars with faith in the divine, and fought chaos with the structure of an ending prayer. And now, return to your own time, your own space. Feel the simple comfort of the bed beneath you, the gentle weight of your blanket. The air you breathe is clean and safe. The silence in your room is one of peace, not of fear. There is no tolling bell marking the plague's advance. There is no relentless drumbeat compelling you to dance. There is none but EM summons to a cold stone church. There is only the quiet of the present moment. The struggles of the past can fade away. The figures we have met can recede into the mists of history. Their anxieties are not yours. Your only task now is to let go, to allow your mind to empty, your body to grow heavy, and your breath to slow. The journey is over. All that is left is rest. Sleep well,